And we currently, there's no violation for that.
I'm going to have to interject, and I apologize. The way the agenda is written, we can only talk about the timing issue. That's all that the agenda actually addresses.
We can do that.
All right.
So that topic came up last time. Mr. Fox discussed it, how it all can, and it actually, this is not correct. We already have something under the code ordinance regarding swimming pools and the repair of this timeline of the repair. What I think was suggested at our last meeting was that perhaps we could have something similar to, if you got a swimming pool, you got to rush the time, and if you got an animal, you got to rush the time.
The question was how much time?
Okay. So
There is 10 days.
I might be able to provide a little insight into that. I just had my fish replaced, and it took with taking into consideration as far as environmental factors, rain and whatnot. It took about a week. What is it right now?
The rush time is 10 days for the swimming pool. Is that
No,
right?
swimming pools are immediate.
Is it
Everybody
immediate?
else is 10 days.
Oh, okay.
So
But that's also not 606.
No. We're talking about a completely different ordinance. This is not the animal
That's
control
what
ordinance that we're
we're
referring
referring
to.
I'm saying that's what it's in this agenda.
Yes, swimming
Yes.
pools and spas
Yes,
must
that's
be
correct. That's
repaired
another problem.
immediately.
So the question is, do we want to add to 636 a timing issue for a broken fence that needs to be repaired, a timeline if they have animals?
that's the question before us. So we need to, or I think we do need to put a time limit there, because some of these animals are actually. I reference again the newspaper with the lady a couple of Sundays ago, where she said the animal had escaped the property. And I think, well, a lot of these animals are going out and doing whatever they're doing, and they're coming right back to their property. So I would suggest, when we start talking about repair, we were talking about slats on the fence, or we're talking about, you need to put a latch, actually fix a latch. I believe that was the problem with some, either the latch was in disrepair, or I think it was something just minor and very short or shy of, replacing your whole fence is what we were talking about as far as the context is concerned. So I'm thinking you need to do it within 48 hours.
So 48 hours, but what you're recommending is that it be phrased in such a way that it's just a repair, something that makes it.
And where an animal cannot escape the property. And I don't know how we going. I think it might be some way of how we're going to determine that. Who's going to go back and check that? Is there something? And I hear from the audience. It's like, okay, if we got that, maybe animal control. You pass that off to coordination with code enforcement, and you might want to go.
Generally, we're going to be the first person there. If we put this in the animal ordinance, we're going to be the first person there.
Yes.
And we'll be the one that's making the call that says this is an inadequate fence. And we're going to be basing that decision on the fact that we have dogs that are digging out under it, or are pushing their way through it, whatever.
And that would be very limited in the purpose. In other words, only if you've got an animal that's escaping, say, through a hole. But if animal control is out and they see a messed up fence, but these people don't have a dog, that's not their beat.
Right. That's only if it's tied to a situation where we're trying to get an animal in front. And the key to it, I think, is that you have X amount of time to repair it. And until it's repaired, that fence is not considered sufficient to be a restraining device. So it means if I come by tomorrow and you haven't repaired it, and the dog's loose in the backyard, you have an unrestrained animal. And then I'm rough out talking and enforce that. Which means you're going to have to put it inside until you get it fixed.
But 48 hours depends on how much is this fence damaged. In some cases, you cannot repair it in 48 hours.
So do
You
you,
can temporarily.
do you give the ability if the dog is getting out because the fence is always there? You keep it very simple. The dog must be restrained in a home or in a fixed cage until such time as the fence repaired is left with the fence. It is an at-large issue. Period. When you take 2 days or 2 months, I don't care. If you let your dog run loose in your backyard and don't fix it, it's an unrestrained dog.
Because it's unrestrained, being that it's gotten the,
We've already got evidence to show it gets out of the yard because of these things.
See, I can like that sentence in there. If it's, the fence is broken, you have to keep your dog somewhere else. It's safe.
so I would still like,
Restraint.
I mean, we'll go and get a consensus on that, but how, is there any way that we can,
Now, if the fence is broken down and doesn't meet code, that's something we can report to code enforcement. And they, under their own time constraints, can figure out how to do that.
One, I think under 636, we need some of this information under 302.7.1. If we don't, nobody's going to find the procedures on a fence. Animal control can do anything on here, the ought to be able to do anything on here that code enforcement can do. My real recommendation, though, is that we table this because business of the time is only part of how much of 302.7.1 do we put under 6-36. And until we determine that, it may determine the time frame. So I think we ought to wait. Now, we have to be careful because this is going to require rewrite. And they're already rewriting dangerous. So while we have to move quickly, we'll discuss this more under date of the next meeting, but we have to be careful that we're not, and unless we want others to help write something to present so that it's something to start with.
all right, so, let's get a consensus right quick. Do we want to take action on the date today, or do we want to table this?
Yeah, I mean, you can actually have a motion if you want to table the issue.
Okay.
All right.
Motion that we table,
Second.
well, let me see what it is, for 5B, section 6-36 restraint until the next meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Fox to table, section 6-36 restraint, and we have Ms. Cannon that's second that table. All those in favor? I think the ayes have it. So we're gonna table this item until a later time, okay? All right, the next item on our discussion is to consider the next meeting date and time. And I think, this is gonna depend on some factors. I think with the next meeting, I think the next meeting when we would be able to see some draft material. I think that was the reason why we would deliberate when we would have our next meeting, depending on when we'd like to see some draft information.
Obviously, it kind of all depends. If you wanted to try to maintain the time frame that we were doing, it would be another 2 weeks. However, I don't think it's reasonable for us to expect to have all the drafts ready in 2 weeks. I mean, that's just the reality here. But I think, I know Lee and I can get together and we could have some of it at least drafted and prepared. It's hard to say at this point exactly how much to be done, but I mean, we could at least get some of it done.
We still have plenty of other things to discuss.
The next, within 2 weeks.
So we could present something, if we did it in 2 weeks, we could have something for you to start looking at. I just can't pin down exactly how much that's going to be because of the short amount of time.
So within 2, so we're gonna meet, I think we need to meet again in the next 2 weeks. And I think Commander Fox had mentioned something about these meetings being special, Commander Caufield was mentioning, was mentioning something about these being special meetings because we generally just meet
Usually you meet
once a month, so these are
Just tied to this event.
tied to this event, these are special meetings. So we will, what is, two days from, or 2 weeks from? So, ooh, 2 and 12. Oh.
Regular meeting would have been on the 19th. No, it would have been the 12th.
Regular.
Oh, I thought it was every 4 weeks. Oh, it's just the third.
So our next meeting will be, June the 12th at 12 p.m.
I don't know, I have to try to.
Okay, just put that in
I kinda like it over here. So we'll just make it, we'll make it,
Code to get in the door.
we'll make it here.
Okay, I went to the store. I didn't check that.
And Miss Mapes, is it possible just to, I know like you said, you won't have it all, but is it a way to have something to draft?
We will put our best efforts forward to put as much as we can in draft form for you.
Okay, we appreciate that. And we have future, the next thing is, oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, future items,
Okay,
interested. If, that we're on.
yes,
Okay.
we're on the next item.
If we're gonna, if staff's gotta have time to, there's other issues. So, the list of other issues, the spay and neuter and microchipping, a big one, education. I would like to see, you mentioned fences, what you can't do. I'd like to see that. I know what the ordinance says on repairs under 302.7.1, but you mentioned you can't put something, because I see all kinds of fences around here, so I'm not sure that,
It's totally didn't do it.
yeah, what the city code is on the,
There's a lot of detail in that, we can provide that.
one other item. We've been working on this for about a month. Should we not have already a PAO video on the approaching of dogs to people walking up on Channel 10 already? Or at least something to draft for the committee to premiere before it goes public? It seems to me that, you know, the business of should citizens have sticks? And I see people walking all the time with sticks, and like a cane half the time. But I mean, what to do, video-wise, as opposed to the very lengthy and informative information that's currently on Channel 10 about animal control. There's nothing really other than report a bite, a video showing this dog is approaching citizens, what is it we do, etc. It seems to me we ought to already have that. We ought to already have that done just about by now. And I put that more on PAO than I do on.
Well, yeah, because you're talking about the actual production time.
Well, that's right, but we
And
should,
the cost of that.
well, and it,
Now, what we do, just so that, I don't know if you're aware, we have a presentation that we do about how to handle, how to deal with animals, what to do if they approach. We do it in the schools. We have hit thousands of school kids this year
well,
alone
should that,
on those educations.
that's very similar to what ought to be on Channel 10 with some, I'm sure we can find a dog that can, on
Well,
command,
and there may be,
act
if you're
not
talking about the
just
production time and cost to go find it, I mean, we need to look for it. I don't disagree with that, I agree.
I
It's just a
think
matter of
There's something
finding it.
that's already been produced.
and that's,
Maybe there's something that's already been
Maybe
produced.
something's already been produced. Yeah.
and
Like I
that's
said, we
something,
do those. We back and just did one at Shoemaker High School, week before last.
I tell you what we'll do is put that on as an agenda item. We'll talk about that, I guess, briefly. We'll talk about that briefly at our next meeting, just briefly to see where we are, if we have anything like that, that's available now that could, and I think we would probably not want to, rely on the media to put our information out, maybe something that, if that thing is something that can be produced and put up on city website. That's our lane, I believe, our responsibility, something there, we can let PAO can do something, we'll talk about that. That's something we need to talk about, all right? Okay. I have one more before we go, and well, actually, we got to go, we're way over time. So the next item on our, the last, y'all know,